of the things you learn being here, working with Chinese companies, working in the culture, working the languages, is sometimes direct communication, speaking directly or addressing the problem directly is not necessarily the most effective way of doing it, especially if you're going to damage someone's face, especially if you're criticizing them or you're seen to be criticizing the decision in view of others. If you're talking one-on-one, maybe it's easier. I remember very specifically where there was a certain company that was partnering with some influencers and some sales partners in a market I will not name, but it was very far right, very what the Westerners might call fascist leaning, and they didn't seem to understand that this might be good short term for your company in this market, but you're a global company. Your actions in all your markets can be scrutinized by the global media, and they weren't as quick to understand. So we had to have a lot of drawn-out conversations. We had to finesse the egos of the sales team, sales partners. But so even if you're in the right from a risk management point of view, from a public relations point of view, you can't just come in and say, I'm right. One of the best examples I've ever heard, I think, was one of the smartphone companies I've worked with, because I've worked with multiple of them, and they brought in this designer from Apple or from Samsung to really help them with their design. And I think within a week or two, this person was like yelling on the phone, screaming in the bathroom, because they wanted to do things only their way. At least that's what I heard, secondhand. So take it with a grain of salt. But it's a good example about how someone comes in, especially from a very high-end company, and they think, okay, I'm here to give my advice, therefore everybody has to listen to exactly everything I say. That's not how it works. There has to be give and take. And many first-time expats, especially first-time working inside a Chinese company, they don't get that, and it can be a bit of a shock.
If something is not working, you're doing business or you're working with Chinese, something is not working, something you want to change, what would be the right way, the right approach to do it?
Well, I think first of all, you have to take an honest take and say, is this a nice to have issue or a nice to change, or is it seriously critical to the business success? Because one of the things you have to realize is that things like public opinion or media relations aren't necessarily the top of the list for growing Chinese companies. Sales are the most important thing, especially if they're product driven. They don't necessarily think about things like consumer opinion directly, and so you have to think first and foremost about, is this actually something we can solve right now, or is it something we can solve later? And you can't have everything perfect. Like I said, nice to have versus need to have. That's the key thing.
Exactly, yeah.
And what the specific view of the Chinese company is, what's the most important thing for them? Because if you can't make them happy short term, then you can't stay on to help them solve the big problems long term. And so again, it's a lot of expats think that they're going to do exactly their way, everything's going to be perfect, but you have to be China speed. You have to move quickly and do the best you can. Obviously, if there's really big issues like not being compliant in the local market, that's a big issue, but you have to find the best way to communicate that to the key stakeholders, and they may simply not listen. You simply have to do the best you can. You have to find the right balance.
Yeah. Is there a case that you need to go and drink with Chinese to make business with them?
Yeah. There's been multiple New Year's parties or end of year parties where I sit at the boss's table. We have the baijiu liquor.
Yeah.
So it depends. Sometimes they'll have the baijiu, sometimes they'll just prefer to have wine or beers. It depends. In the South, people don't go quite so much for the baijiu liquor. Whereas if you're in the North, I would often go for drinks with my friend and his dad and his uncles, and we'd be knocking back baijiu shots. So you got to be careful in the North because they can really hold their liquor. My friend's uncles can, but I'm middleweight, I would say, as long as you eat a lot of food first. But I think it really depends. You don't have to drink liquor to make people happy and build your relationships. It's more about being there, the environment. You can certainly drink regular drinks like soda or tea, but still have a very happy atmosphere, a very vigorous, toasting atmosphere, even if you're not drinking alcohol. It's more about your behavior and the relationship you're building, though there are, of course, certain people that would prefer you drink, though you don't have to. You've probably heard many stories before from the 80s and 90s where you literally had to drink if you wanted to get the deal signed. It's not quite that crazy these days.
Not anymore. Okay.
It's optional.